Whilst their mother was taken to prison in Tirana, the two boys were thrown into the cells of Burrel.
I couldn't resist to the psychological terror and pressure and the situation in the cell, quite isolated. I couldn't resist, and I said what they asked for me. Later on, during prison, I reflected on that, and I thought it was better to do as Vladimir did, not as I did. I've heard about persons who have committed suicide in prison, and of bad treatment, of being tortured there in prison, and seen my friends going out of isolation cells who are being maintained for 20 days, 30 days, their hands chained tightly and their fingers paralyzed for some weeks after that. Heard people being beaten in the cells. So, in the prison was a person paralyzed during the interrogation because of being tortured. He couldn't walk, he couldn't speak, he was mad, he didn't understand what people talked to him, and he was maintained in prison for terrorism as a dangerous person.
In 1988, the two brothers learned that their mother had died in prison. They were not told how.
Many Politburo members has been accused and condemned as enemies, as agents. And then they are numerous. They are not just a handful of people. Most of the leadership, of the past leadership, was accused. So this state of fear existed in every level of the society.
These were the rulers of Albania in the late 1970s.
Expelled from the Politburo and Central Committee. Expelled from Parte. Condemned 25 years, condemned 20 years and died in prison. Committed suicide, condemned 25 years, expelled from Parte. Executed, 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 executed. 25 years in prison, condemned 20 years in prison.
Then, in 1985, after 40 years as Albania's ruler, Enver Hoxha died. In March this year, the two brothers were released as part of the general amnesty for political prisoners. When they left jail, they had only the clothes they stood up in. Today, they've no income and no home of their own. They depend on others to provide a bed and some food. They're still frightened. They refuse to be filmed walking in the streets of Tirana for fear of antagonizing the authorities. But for Bashkim, at least, the years in jail were not completely wasted.
I learned much there. I learned about the regime. I learned much about myself also. And I think I gained for myself some good properties. Being made better. Learned how to resist better. How not to make any more compromise when I deal with the truth. So.
During his imprisonment, Bashkim, the only one of the brothers who married, learnt that his wife had left him. She'd flown abroad with the children.
I don't know where they are exactly. They're perhaps in Italy, perhaps they are in France. I don't know where they are. Trying to get in contact with them, but I don't have their address and either their telephone number.
Neither of the brothers knows where their mother is buried. For many years it was the practice of the Albanian authorities not to release the body of a prisoner who died in jail until the entire sentence had been completed. When Skander went to Tirana Cemetery last month to visit the grave of his father, he was unable to find it. He was told that 3 days after his father was buried, the authorities dug up the coffin and took it away. Skander has been unable to find out where it was taken. Shkodra, in the very north of Albania. In recent months, the city's become the focus of political opposition. After the recent elections in which the communists retained power, the city demonstrated its anger. A huge crowd assembled outside the Communist Party headquarters. Shots from the building killed 3 people. The mob then attacked the building, ransacking and looting it, and finally setting it on fire. The few cars in the city, driven by Communist Party chiefs, were a special target. Shkodra is also the center of the revival of Christianity. This is the Church of the Madonna of the Rosary. Last month it was a Communist Party storehouse. Today, like perhaps 30 or 40 other churches in the country, it's again being made ready for worship. About a fifth of the country was Christian at the end of the Second World War. They worshipped under increasing repression until the communists closed down all the churches in 1967. Since Christmas, the regime has allowed churches to open again. It's too early to gauge the extent of the revival of Christianity. Many older people, those who worshipped before the ban, have returned to church. Many youngsters, guided by their parents and grandparents, have followed, some out of faith, others from curiosity or as a mark of political protest. What is clear is that few have suffered in Albania as much as the Catholic priests. Father Alex Bachli is 73. He spent more than 20 years of his life in prison for practicing his faith.
Po flas vetëm për veten time. Kam nej 5 ditë, 5 net. Pa hangër, pa pi, I livun, për një pen, për krash, edhe vetën mojet e kamve takojshin në tokë.
Father Alex's tragedy began as it did for many other priests at the end of the Second World War. Many churchmen resisted the creation of the new atheistic communist state. Priests were rounded up wholesale. In 1946, the young Father Alex found himself jammed into a room barely 10 feet square with 20 other Catholic priests.
Kushtet ishin të mërshme. Kurt, ishte maja në bëm, ishte shumë jo humane. Per arsye se mungote drita po se po. Por edhe ajri ishte dera, do të thonë, muri I asaj ishte I lakështitun për arsye se fillë mas ishin vetet edhe u shifte lakështina e murit. Kemi ndaj aty prej vatorit të 27 deri në marin të majit I 1928. Pristi që ka dek aty ka ken një I ri dom e deda për Shkodrës, vaj. Natyrisht, vujte po asnjë ndihmë, në vdote një pak djath që kishim, me tum nuj për me zjarë një minimum të lynit për me avon ati. Punë nuk e dërman edhe nish.